Both running? Yes. Okay, we do have a running. Well, I see a red dot saying recording.
Oh yeah, you're streaming.
Okay, good. All right, cool.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Will Gable. You've come to the show Edge of Truth
Radio.
radio streaming here. Really happy to have all of you with us again here today, along with Sharon Quinn, our host, and Tryson Graham, our technician here, who we couldn't get by without him. So
There'd be no show without them.
our show today is going to be a follow-up on last week's show. We're going to consolidate it, reorganize it, look at it a little bit different. We're going to build on what was Sharon put out last week. So this show is going to be more into looking into what has been going on here recently with, we'll just say, corporations, masks, and the control agenda that they're actually eliciting out here. I'll be coming back in and talk a little bit more about some of the research I did here this week on that issue. So we want to again invite you to stick with this whole show. And so I want to turn it over to Sharon Quinn.
Well, welcome everybody. Welcome listeners. We're all grateful for your willingness to learn and to figure out how to get to the other side of all this crazy free fall that we're in. I want to thank Tryson very much for making this even possible. So we always want to keep Tryson in our happy, grateful face and energy field. And thank Will for his support and the research he was doing this week. I myself was very, very tied up with the final production of a book for parenting to help them with all the craziness that parents are feeling right now with this whole COVID explosion that has just literally shut down education and put children in front of the parents, made it difficult for them to be able to go to work, and everything else that has come out of it. And so this book is called The Heart and Soul of Parenting Handbook, and it's got step-by-step skills to help parents and child be empowered, because we both need to be empowered. And it all really, it's covered with direct steps. It's not just a theory book, but it's not a blind faith book either. And it is not a book that is totally geared with all Christian concepts. I saw in looking online how there was just a lack of books for parents dealing with all this stuff, and realized, oh my God, they need it now more than ever. So the book got written, and it's for all of you. And hopefully it'll be out this week. It's been delayed by a couple days, mainly because I thought I would only put out the print version, and it turns out I'm going to be able to get the ebook to come out at the same time. So big wins and a miracle, a miracle in its own right. So today we want to jump off of and start from where we were last week with a little bit of a review, just so that we are tying everything together with our thoughts so we can understand where we're going and why we're going where we're going. Because if we don't have understanding, we will have confusion. And confusion is what we want to end, right? Who isn't tired of everything being so confusing and wondering what matters? We got conflicting information, and conflicting information is not a good thing. So let's figure out why there's so much conflicting information and how to sort the tares from the wheat. We're going to go to principle at all time, because principle is eternal truth, and eternal truth never changed, has been as good from the day of creation to all of time, to pull back any society that broke down. They all come back together by rerooting themselves on truth, because the truth is aligned with our Creator, and therefore it brings us eternal tranquility, peace, the grounding we're talking about here today. Not religion, but grounding in who we are. Wonderful, phenomenal, amazing spirit embodied people. And right now our body is under attack in many, many ways. That's our car, our vehicle. And we really need to understand more so that our beautiful human spirit can be free, because we love that free human spirit. When we see men at war going out and being brave enough to go and drag somebody off the battlefield, it's not their body that's doing that. That body is filled with fear. It's their human spirit that rises to the occasion to do beautiful things. And with that said, let's go and take a quick review of where we are and how it will serve us to go forward into deepening our conversation. We were talking about paradigms. And paradigms are extremely important because paradigms are the thoughts and the guidelines that we buy into as a society and then establish all of our institutions to support our paradigms. We talked about how we have established institutions that feed that purpose: religion, government, education, politics, agribusiness, food chains, medicine, medical, and banks. We've had somebody type in on the chat, don't forget the money. And so, yes, thank you everybody for your feedback and for helping us fill in a few things that we didn't mention that were extremely important, such as food chains, agribusiness, and banks, which were not in our discussion, but they're all there, and there are more institutions. So what's interesting, and the line we just want to draw to your attention, is that all of our institutions have become, for the most part, corporate. And corporate is what's determining what's going on right now. It's a very big hand that's money driven, and the institutions are driven by policy. And policy driven means man-made ideas, and then we come up with all these policy books. And I don't know if you've ever gotten a job where they handed you a policy book and it was like, yay, and you just opened it up with, and that was the end of your policy introduction. However, for the rest of the time you have your job, you are dealing with those policies and realize that a lot of them were strangulating, and they stopped good communication because they weren't really serving your creativity and your ability to think and relate as teams and everything with your job, but more like do as you are told, and it got handed down from the corporate top. Okay, so policy driven and not principle. What do I mean by not principle? Well, principle driven is we go by what relates to who we are as a human spirit, about what relates to eternal ideas like equity, being peaceful, equality, mutuality. We start thinking in terms of that which goes back to a very simple precept of a wonderful teacher called love your neighbor as yourself. Now, we have translated that by twisting and turning everything around to be even silly things like codependency, and that now goes and says, well, love your neighbor as yourself is political correctness. No, it's not. That's a policy that wants to strap the freedom of your talking about saying the truth to somebody. Is life going to hurt? I think it's when we grow up and we're no longer little children, we all realize life is filled with things that cause us to feel pain.
We have a chat that says, you are God.
You are God. Somebody wrote that in on the chat. All right.
I don't think it's the compliment that you are God, but recognizing the divinity and stuff.
Right.
The source essence.
It is definitely about people recognizing that our source is that human spirit, which is that which is breathing our breath. I mean, as we all know, baby's born, don't take that breath, there's no life. We also know that to this day, science doesn't understand what's catalyzing that breathing, what's making that breathing occur. They can't get it in a test tube, they can't get it in genetic makeup, they can't do anything, but it's there. And you don't need a college degree or a master's or anything else to realize breath is important and it's got something to do with who you are. We all know that. So why belabor the point and act like we got to prove it? Okay, because that's silly. Okay, so we are breath. And today what we're going to use is the idea of masks. And isn't that interesting? Because it's about controlling our breath. It's about filtering our breath. It's about making it difficult to breathe. And it's hiding our beautiful smiling faces, which is who we are. Okay? And it's starting to make us just a set of eyes, that we can't even see the rest of the person. Take your mask off. I see you a day later. Am I going to know you were the person I had that great conversation with? Oh, absolutely not. So it's very inhumane. It keeps us isolated. It keeps who we are as a person isolated from each other, isolated from even knowing who we are because we want to even pull it in. I don't know about you, but my body goes hysterical every time a mask comes up. It's like, no, we're working on breathing. I need my immunity. I am a microbiome. And somebody who can help you really understand that would be Dr. Zach Bush. And will load up some really great links for you to be able to listen to this amazing triple board certified doctor. He's brilliant. And he gives us a lot to think about that is something we need to think about. And he's coming out of, you're going to keep hearing this word, corporate mindset. He started with the corporate mindset, and then he started working with people in hospitals and in his practice and started to see the human element, that spirit that is breathing our breath, beating our heart, and setting off all that intelligence that comes down as synapses talking to the whole body through our nervous system. I know a doctor might want to completely rephrase my words, but we all get the idea. And that's what we're really talking about, is we get the idea. Okay, so we want to look at masks. Are they the real issue, or is there something deeper for us to understand about them? So let's go to something we learned also in the show last week. Okay, we talked about we need to look at the root of any given idea, because the root, we can always talk about issues up here, and actually masks hang out here on the top of the tree. They are one of the dividing issues. We have violence. We have all kinds of fear going on. We have religions with different ideas. The tree is filled with something is just filled with all the plethora of so many conflicting ideas that are on the tree. Okay, what we want to do is ground our thinking to find the common ground that allows us to see what are all these opposing conflicts about. How do we sort through them? That's the idea of another principal idea, sorting tares from wheat. Wheat being the truth that sets you free and informs you accurately, and the tares, which are some kind of BS. They can be all over the place. It can be from outright fake information to manipulated information to partial information to just randomized, made up information that's got no basis in anything other than somebody's fantasy, or just pure emotional information that is more grounded in fear or a desire to manipulate and control others, or from an overextended ideas of extremism. That would be a good way to put it, extreme, my way or the highway kind of an idea. And then we have the balance point. So nonetheless, what we want to look at here is how do we get to the root? Because we know that that's another principle, is lay your axe at the root or the seed level where everything initiates, and you will get the greatest, most profound answers that will, one, stabilize what you're trying to do, sorting through all the complexity up here. Because here, we all know if we go out and try to just pull a few weeds from the garden and we don't really get out the roots, what's back the following very shortly? More weeds. We couldn't really get to the roots of some very tenacious Oklahoma type grass, and it has taken over all of our organic gardens. So get to the root, which is where everything keeps really generating and happening, and we get to really understand what we need to resolve and solve. Okay? Seed works the same way. It's even more potent than the root because it's where the originating paradigm and idea germinates from, and then grows. The root is a fledgling idea. A new paradigm, for example, starts as a seed idea, forms its root, sprouts a little bit, gets fed by a lot of people. They start to think about it. we realize, oh, the changes it can bring to our society and to our world, and then it starts to grow as we work with it, we start developing it, we start putting things in, we start, oh, that part didn't work, this part works, and then we eventually grow a beautiful tree. But like anything else, if we don't keep looking at our paradigms and adjusting them to the flux and change that life actually is, they fall apart. And that's the big problem we're dealing with today, and we've dealt with for all of our history. We are reluctant to trust the divine within because we're too busy being taught by our religion paradigms that we're sinners, that we're not worthy, that we're some variation of not okay, that we aren't, as somebody put into our chat, we are an aspect of the divine. And as an aspect of the divine, we have an intelligence that is indeed extremely capable of thinking with clarity, as long as it's not being filtered by a bunch of other ideas that are conflicting and crazy, and we don't know how to get back to the root. So this is why we're talking with the shows. We want to help you get back to thinking from the root and the seed, because it clarifies. We also called that prime fraction thinking last week. And that basically said, we've got all these different fractions running around, and we reduce them to their prime. We realize, well, we don't have a million and an infinity number of fractions. We have primes. We have 1/3, we have 1/2, we have 1/4. And that's the same as getting to the root. Figure out what we're talking about at its bottom line. It's prime. And there we have clarity. And there we can really figure out a lot of stuff. And we can come up with some great ideas. Education is a very big problem that we've looked at, because we see that we have let this tree grow, and from an education system, we talked about this last week, that was based on serving an industrialized people, which meant not really good thinking skills, but the ability to go and work in a factory and be happy to do so, and to be a hard worker. Well, that doesn't serve our information society very well, does it? No. And actually, we look at schools and they're not teaching people to think. I mean, we were talking today about an interesting thing where this grandmother was saying that she had written a thank you note to her little granddaughter, who was, a more mature person, like in her teens, okay? And she wrote her a nice little letter, but grandma was from, let's just say she was from Austria. And so she mails this little note to her daughter, her granddaughter, and the granddaughter calls her up and says, Grandma, I can't read. You wrote it in Austrian. Grandmother said, no, I didn't. That's in English. I wrote it in cursive hand. Oh my God! She didn't even comprehend or recognize the alphabet from print into cursive in English. That's a pretty messed up education, wouldn't you say? I'd say it's like a huge incomplete and crappy education. So that's just a sign. It's just a sign of just how crazy and how broken many of our institutions have become. So today we'd like to just look at what they're corporate. What do we see with corporate? What have they become? What is a corporation? Well, those are a couple great educational discussions and modules we could have. But not to go off on a tangent, we don't want to really get into that a whole lot, other than to say that corporates are policy driven, as we said, not principle driven. Okay? And when something is policy driven, what does it lead to? We all know. A bunch of rules, regulations, and protocols. They completely have nothing to do with the person they're relating these protocols to. They're standardized to the lowest common denominator. Is that you? Is that you, Will? Is that you, Tyson? It's not me. And I know it's not you guys. And I know it's not you, each of our listeners. You are not the lowest common denominator, but you are suffering from an education that has assumed and taken you to that and provided what only the lowest common denominator could handle. And even that's been dumbed down. We've called it the dumbing down of education. But it really is because policies had to keep going to what was lesser and lesser. Now think about it. It's very simple. You can't take somebody who can only, let's say, has an IQ of, let's say, 50. You can't take an IQ of 50, perform at an IQ of 150. But you can take 150 IQ by not training them properly and force them down to the 50. So you can take higher evolve and ideas and reduce them down to BS and the simplest, most mundane aspect. But you can't take those simple mundane aspects and get them up and have everybody who is not able to function at the higher level. Okay, this is a real issue, but this is not the way to run a good education. So if an education weren't to be run that way by policies and protocols, what would it be? It would be empirical. So what does empirical mean? It means free. It means we observe, we have our training, we have our tool belts of different skills, and we look and we observe in education. I'm always going to go to education because that's what I do, but you can apply this across the board to anything else, and it's easy for us to do. And so if I get to watch students and I observe them and I say, you know, this child is having a hard time, what am I going to do? Well, I'm not going to apply a protocol and says that child must perform by the protocol, because then I'm trying to put this kid into a box. I'm trying to say that I'm going to just assume this kid is dumb, and I'm either going to ask that they be put on some drugs so they can just be happy and bored, or is this child excelling, or is this child having difficulty keeping up? My observations will tell. I'll pull out a tool, another pedagogy, and I'm going to work with that child, and I'm going to realize very quickly whether the child was struggling to keep up or whether the child was excelling beyond all recognized paces that a protocol would put them in. Okay, so I would be able to do a personalized education. Now, Montessori is a perfect empirical free educational system because it's all based upon teacher knowing the child and the child making, demonstrating and being all interactive and responsive. Public school system is the complete opposite of that, where we try to herd them all into a room and make everybody listen, obey, and do all this stuff. And so we have to go and dumb, because we have to go to the lowest common denominator to be able to get everybody on the same page, which is really not the goal, but it is the goal from an administration standpoint and from a policy standpoint, the way schools are run. Oh, you need more than that. Your kids need more than that, and you've always wanted more than that. And maybe the beauty of what's breaking down right now, and everybody being so fear-oriented and being more worried about whether or not they might get COVID, which their body will probably deal with because we've had the flu, we have mumps, we have measles. We live as a microbiome in a world of bacteria and viruses and all kinds of things I don't even know all the names for, but it's a whole organic world that I'm going to just call Mother Nature. Our body is a Mother Nature body. Our spirit comes in and is dealing with a Mother Nature vehicle. Okay? So our spirit is beyond, can transcend even mind, and it's using a mind and a body so it can be here and play the human game. We can be human for a period of time and exchange and co-create beautiful things. However, I don't see us doing a lot of beautiful co-creating right now. I see a lot of people going into a fear mode and contracting by policy. What is the CDC doing? It's one of the government institutions. Well, they're not really giving you facts. We've learned a lot. Like many doctors are coming forward and saying, hey, man, we didn't know what COVID was when it first hit. Didn't have a clue. And it freaked us all out. So we withdrew for about 30 days. Then we started getting information. And then we wanted to start really plugging in this information. And now we're many months into this. And the doctors are saying, all right, we get it. It's not even that virulent of a virus. It's one of the weaker viruses that even exists. But when you're only focused on looking how many people get it, well, that's insane because that's what herd immunity is. We all have to get it. It builds immunity. There's nothing weird. We've been doing that with the flu. We've been doing it with the measles and mumps. Did we shut economies down? For all of this, if we did, we would have never moved in our entire life to do anything. Think about it. Doesn't that make sense? Of course it does. But we need to talk about it. I think Will has moved forward towards the mic, so I know he wants to say some stuff. Go, Mike. I mean,
Well-
not go, Mike. The mic is there. Go, Will.
Okay. One of the things here Sharon mentioned earlier was Dr. Zach Bush. And just to kind of add a little bit to this conversation here that she's starting to bring, walk into is the virus into things. It would do you all good to get to his interviews, especially about how the coronavirus and virus in general is a foundation of that's been here for billions of years. Okay, we're just swimming in it. It doesn't matter what you think about it. And so he gets it into this context of the microbiome of the whole earth. So you've got viruses, bacteria, and fungi that have been here for millions of years, probably before mankind even blinked onto the existence end of it. So to get a good comprehensive, I'll put on some links to his information, very enlightened person as far as this subject. And I'll be giving you a few figures here a little bit later when Sharon gets me in there on the issues of just the number of people who've gotten it, who've had prior flu shots, stuff like that. I don't want to get into it at this moment. But anyway, Dr. Zach Bush, look him up on YouTube, go to his website. He's put out some fantastic products also. He's trying to get the agricultural end of life here back in balance on the planet.
And you'll see when he's talking, even though he'll be talking as a medical doctor, he will also be talking about one of our other institutions, which are the food chain and agriculture. And because we're really a holism, and that's one of the points I want to make too about our institutions being corporate. They have, our current institutions are very much lockstep in seeing things in extremes, all or nothing, all or nothing. Getting to that balance point and trying to incorporate other things, we just don't see it. I'll make my point on medicine. We've got basically two forms of medicine. Allopathic, which is what most people understand. You go to the hospital, you're going to get hit by an allopathic set of doctors and allopathic viewpoints. And basically, they are very scientifically driven. Then you've got a whole world of medicine that preceded that for thousands and thousands of years that I'm going to call empirical medicine, where medicine developed by watching and observing people and allowing growth to occur and learning what people were doing and how they were doing it. Acupuncture comes out of that. We have, herbal remedies that come out of that, naturopathic medicine. We have more branches of medicine coming out of that. Now, allopathy is an all or nothing. Hates that level of medicine. Okay, we have technical directive help coming our way. Oh, people are having a hard time hearing me?
Yeah.
Ooh, we don't want that. We'll wait just a moment to solve this very crucial problem. This one here would be a speaker too. You can open the full panel, it'll give you a bunch of them. Do you think we got it up?
No.
Volume mixer will give you a whole bunch of things. Okay. All right, we need your feedback because we are in a live organic system using technology as our interface. Okay. So balance means a little bit of both. And we talked about that last week on the idea of absolute and relative. Relative is always at this balance point of a little bit of the left, a little bit of the right, a little bit of the left, a little bit of the right, but not extreme left, extreme right. That never brings us a long-term solution because it's imbalanced. So balance would be another principle. It always was and always will be the place of peace and harmony. And if you think about it, balance says we're all equal. Not one race, not one gender, not one animal. Not one thing is more than anything else. We all have our place within a holism, and it all moves around a center point. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, and we all serve a point. We all do different things that fill in gaps with each other. That's the beauty of being a unity of oneness. Our spirit, our presence, the part that is breathing our breath, understands that beautifully well. But that part of ourself is buried under a lot of beliefs, a lot of pain, and a lot of fear. And of course, what's going on right now is we have media, which is another institution we didn't put up there. See, they keep revealing, that wants to favor everything that's institutionalized, the extremes, all or nothing, fear, 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 fear. We don't want to look at the facts. We've got onto this fear thing. We can create a whole new economy based on people living in fear, and we can break down a lot of people. We can get rid of a lot of people. We can marginalize people who didn't have enough financial reserves and make them become nothing and turn them into some kind of, God only knows what plan they have, but it can't be beautiful. We know that. Because we want everyone, no matter where we are on the extremes that our current paradigms have created, to bring everybody closer to a more stable position around the center point. That's principle, okay? So our current paradigms are extreme, policy-driven, protocol, set up, the all or nothing kind of paradigm, and they have a hierarchy. There is no such thing as going into a corporation. Now, if you know this who have had a job in a corporation that you want, oh, I can't wait to get out of there. I'd rather be an entrepreneur. Where is the entrepreneurs coming from? They are trying to come from the other side of corporation, saying we don't want to live that way. We don't want to be under this pure hierarchy situation where our opinion doesn't matter, our thoughts don't matter. We're the ones in the streets doing the work. And by the time it runs up the policy ladder, there's such a disconnect. It's unreal. And we all know it. We hate it. And anybody who works in a corporation will put up with it to get a paycheck, but it doesn't make them happy. It sucks out the life of their spirit, their soul. And it gives them pressure. It gives them stress. Okay? That's not harmony. That's not health and well-being. That's stress. It's like, give me something to numb me up. A drug, please. A drug, please. And allopathy is more than happy to put a drug your way. And then we kind of went down a path where we thought maybe if you numbed me all up and made me feel better and got rid of my symptom, that was health. But then we see people just get sicker and sicker and sicker with more and more drugs. I mean, I'll never forget when Will was working with this guy and they were doing apartment management. And there were some elderly people there who had been around for a long time and on a lot of drug protocols throughout their life, where this guy like had a shoebox. The minute he opened up his door, the smell of the drugs coming off of him almost knocked us both out. That's all this guy knew. And it broke my heart because he wasn't healthy, but he was breathing, and that was about it. Breathing and reeking to high heaven and still needing more drugs to alleviate some of his pain and befuddled mind. I just looked at that and said, I am so glad I'm not going down that path. Wow, that's awful. Okay. So at any rate, the whole idea is you've got this whole hierarchy idea that is completely distanced from the people that they're serving. A business is started for a reason, and it's now turns that if it's corporation, it serves the board of directors before it serves the consumerism or whatever service they're offering. That becomes secondary to keep giving more and more profits to the board. And who suffers? Everybody suffers except those who are at the top. But I think they're suffering too because they've completely robbed their heart and soul of their spirit. And they're burying their spirit deeper and deeper under greed, or whatever else that is, that just makes them become that hole in the soul. The hole in the soul wants more, 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 more. And it just starts sucking off energy from everybody and everyone. Fair exchange is what really business is all about. If I'm trying to just get 200% more than something is worth that I'm giving you as a product, what am I doing? I'm trying to suck off more of your life energy in the form of dollars so that I can have a more outrageous extreme amount. That's insane. But that's what we're doing. So I'm only bringing this up because I know if you sit there and think about this, a part of you is going to say, Sharon, I hate what you're saying. I mean, I really hate it. Maybe I hate it. Okay? And it stresses me out. But I don't know what to do about it, and I feel disempowered by it. I know. You guys can't believe it. She got so crazy. But it makes us crazy, right? And so what happens is it's just sucking all of our life force out, and we feel more and more disempowered, more and more depressed, more and more sad, more and more hopeless, and more prone to fear. And we just start doing this. We contract. Fear does this. Contracts. What do you see here? Whoops, wrong side of the pow, right? And now we want to control everybody and we want to hurt them. We want to hurt them because contraction makes us fearful and pulls us in and makes us afraid. Very, very afraid. This is not protection. This is not love, because love does this. May I hug you? May I see your smiling face? Can we chat with each other? Can I reach my hand out and touch you and make you feel loved and cared for, warm? The children shall show the way. I write about this in the book. And what is the major thing children show us the way? They don't teach us math. I mean, I've seen people misinterpret that in the craziest ways I've ever seen. The child will show the way in their sweetness and innocence. They show us that we need to be living empirically, looking and interacting with each other, loving and caring for each other, being not policy driven, but principle driven, love, responding, looking into each other's eyes, touching each other. Even our biology, according to Dr. Listening to his videos, you're going to want to listen to him 3 or 4 times. If you think I'm delivering a lot of information, wait to hear this guy. You're going to want to listen to it 3 or 4 times. But you'll know he's brilliant, and you'll know he's speaking the truth, and you'll take in what you can each time you listen to it. And this whole idea that even our biology is an interactive, live organism is beautiful. I mean, you start to just see that what and who we are, principle is beauty. Not ugly, not contracted, but open and responsive. So, this takes us to an interesting idea that's going to bring us now to our mask idea. But just before we go there, what is it that the biology and our organics need? Our spirit doesn't need it. Our spirit needs to love each other. As the children show the way, we are fed and nurtured by interacting, loving, caring, touching. That's human. We all know that. You can sit there and argue with me all you want. You know darn well you're arguing down a vacuous pit from fear. You know, if you could get rid of the fear, what you want more than anything is to be hugged. You want to be hugged more than anything, because that's human and that's who we are. And our body and our biology, according to the Dr. Bush, actually needs the touch. And all the different microbiomes and viruses and bacteria all around, the body is constantly taking it in by touching and breathing and readjusting and protecting us. We got to get drugs out of the picture, because then the body can't do its job. And we got to keep good, clean water in us, and we got to be eating good foods and not just shoving down the latest GMO product. Or what is that? The Roundup phosphates, the geophosphates, or whatever.
Glyphosate.
The glycophosphates foods, okay? because that actually breaks the body down. And that's one of the reasons many people are susceptible to COVID. They're weak. It's not that COVID's big, it's we're weak. And the way this particular virus was coming out is just showing the sign of our times and saying it's time to change your paradigms, which we will talk about. But we're right now wanting to help you understand how these paradigms are no longer serving us, that the paradigm is out of balance, out of touch, and a fear-based and money greed driven for the few and not the whole. It's very partial and very manipulative. So right now, we have people who say that there's one thing they could say, I'm not going to go shop. I don't have to play the game with businesses trying to control me. Okay? And businesses have lost their way. Let's just look at grocery stores and health food stores even. Oh my God, health food stores, they got their head up there, God knows what. Fear. And I'm wondering, have they forgotten that they're in the grocery business and the health food business? When they sit there and say, we want you to put a mask on to come into our store, we don't really have any good reason why. We have 10 exceptions to the rule, 5 exceptions to the rule, 4 exceptions to the rule. How can there be exceptions if it was a truth? The answer to that is there wouldn't be. So this is randomized bullshit. That's right, I said it. BS. It's crap. Okay? It doesn't fly with logic. It makes no sense. And right there is the big red flag that should matter. It doesn't make sense. It's all over the place. It's got no consistency, because that's another principle. God, our Creator, is the epitome of consistency. And we look to the Creator and we see all the principles that we need to live a happy, beautiful, balanced, creative, loving life. We look to corporations and we can see the way to live a deviant, destructive, greedy, imbalanced, consumer-driven, and we don't even know why we're buying shit anymore. But I think maybe the good part's coming out of this. We're starting to think this over. But the worst part is education has completely failed us. And our children are what beat my heart, breathe my breath. I live that your children get the very best education they can so they grow up to be really smart, balanced, loving adults prepared for the 21st century. Right now, this isn't happening and you know it. And I'm going to help you with that. If you ask me to help you, I'm not going to cram it down your throat because I don't do that kind of stuff. But there will be many families who will come rushing forward and say, help us. Help us give our children the very best empirical education they can have. Help us be free. Help us love again. Help us come out of this and get back to this. Our children are showing us they need more. And as adults, let's give it to them. Okay? So I've been saying to grocery stores and food stores, have you forgotten that you're in the retail business? You're now acting like you're in the people control business. What is that about? And people in the store go, I don't know. I can't stand it myself. I don't know. It's corporate. They'll all say corporate handed this down. So where is our freedom going? Corporate is devouring us. I call it the corona. It's not the coronavirus and how it's acting, because that's nothing according to medicine now. They're figuring it out. It's the carnivorous virus of fear and using the idea of our weakened state and our biology to think of death, and we're going to stop it at all costs. I've heard people say, Sharon, we're going to stop this virus at all costs. After listening to Dr. Zach Bush, I finally got an explanation that made sense. That's arrogant. We could never stop any part of the biome from existing without killing the rest of the biome. By natural design, God, the Creator, things go in and go extinct. But then new things come forward, naturally, not by corporate greed injecting us with something. And if you look at it, people are separating themselves off at the top of the whole corporate thing, that they're not vulnerable. Will told me something the other day that just made me go ballistic. He said, I don't know if I want to tell you this or not. All right, I know I can't withhold it from you. But it was saying that he was reading something about how government is exempting themselves from wearing masks. What? But other people have to? What? Are you kidding me? We all need to think about this because that's insane. Clearly, we're being manipulated and controlled, and our breath, our spirit, is being blocked and filtered, making us sick so we can be more easily controlled. That's my thought. This will.
Let me go into
So, the question is, Will come up in a minute and give us some information. So the idea is, are masks the real problem? No, they are a sign of the times and a symbol, and they are an object being used to create this turning point. Are we going to capitulate and be a sheep and do it because fear is what we're listening to, or are we going to learn to think? And they want education to never come back online the way it was, because they don't want your kids to grow up and be thinkers. They want them to be blind faith followers. Does that remind you of another institution? Blind faith. Media, what are they saying? I believe it because they said it on the media. I saw it on a Facebook post. What? That's not fair. I mean, I could get up on Facebook and say whatever I want. I could just pull stuff out of my you-know-what and throw it up there and see who follows. That's insane. So, masks are about people wanting, it is causing a massive polarization. Why? Because people are beginning to say we need a paradigm shift. We need to stop being controlled. We need to stop being marginalized and thrown to extremes. We want to live the middle balance point. We want to be healthy. We want to have true well-being. And the mask itself, there are people who are saying, I know, my body knows, the minute I put that sucker on, I can't breathe right, which means I can't be healthy. I need oxygen to live. It's the first thing I had to have to live when I was born, and it is the last thing that will leave me when I die. So, blocking that, extremely bad news for your health, well-being, and who you are. So, Will, would you like to share some very interesting stats and stuff with people? Thank you. Love you.
Well, the whole issue came out of a recent city council meeting here in the Oklahoma County, Oklahoma City area. And they decided through their decisions that they would have mandatory wearing masks inside, indoors, doesn't matter where you are. And then they added a bunch of exceptions, and it's just like this was just a practice of futility as far as we were concerned. Otherwise, we live in a suburb outside of Oklahoma City area, so we don't really come under their jurisdiction. But it does affect a lot of the stores, health food stores, and so I called a bunch of stores. It didn't have to be health food stores. I called a bunch of stores, something you might do in your area if you want to, and asked them directly if they're going to follow these mask mandates. Some of them said yes. I asked them why, and they said, well, because the city said so. So, they're just kind of being brainwashed into these policies like we were talking about. This whole thing is kind of a theme of corporate agreements. So that, I got into calling quite a few of the stores. A lot of them are involved in it. Some of them aren't. And it's really all being decided by their CEOs and their store managers. So when I asked them if I could not get in the store, they said, well, it's a suggestion from the city. So I said, if I want to come in, then I can come in. They said, yeah, we can't stop you. So right there, a lot of this can be just a bunch of suggestions. Okay? So another end of this is
Constitutional violation.
yeah, they're violating our constitutional rights by not even being able to go in and buy food to eat and just go where we want to. So the corporations have really got into a stranglehold with their citizens in a sense, because also one of the other things is the National Federation of Retailers. Look it up. A lot of these major corporations are involved in their agreements from this group. Not sure of what all their policies are, but at least right now this is one of them. Just on another end of this whole virus mask thing, there was a lot of research found out here recently that there's 60,000 on the front line healthcare workers in the United States. And they did a research into the COVID end of this thing. 9,000 of the 60,000 came down with COVID, and the correlative factor there they found, or one of the main ones, if not the main one, was that all of those 9,000 had been vaccinated with a flu or influenza vaccination. So now this has got you got to really start looking at things a lot more closer in the data and what's really going on here. So if 9,000 of them got it out of 60,000, then this is a fairly high percentage if you think about it. So all of them took a flu shot. Now we're not sure about the rest of 51,000. That hasn't been delineated in the data yet, but just that alone, is there something going on with vaccinations that we need to know about because they're more susceptible? That's an immune system issue. I mean, everybody that I know hasn't even come close to having any of this. Now they're all into health foods. They're all pretty much got their act together, exercise-wise, thinking-wise, emotional life-wise, spiritual-wise. So in that sense, that balance has, brought their immune system into, nothing's going to. It's like that. If it came around, they just kind of kicked it off. It is nothing, which is what your immune system should do.
Talking about stats, talk about how the big deal. You're going to talk about that too. Mention the whole idea that it doesn't matter that there's a raise of numbers going up. That's anticipated. We knew that would happen. It's not how many people are getting it, how many cases there are. That's basically somewhat irrelevant. What's important is how many people are dying, which means it is not virulent and it is no longer really the scary thing we were talking about. I think your chances of getting killed in a car accident are higher than what people are due of dying right now.
Or just a regular flu, stroke, heart attack, which nobody's even talking about. So the numbers of supposed people contracting the virus has gone up, but the deaths have gone almost nil
So it's not actually
in a percentage-wise. So getting accurate information, I notice here that President Trump took that out of the CDC's responsibility. Now I think it's going more to the hospitals and from the hospitals directly so they can get a better, accurate count as to what's really going on, because it's all being filtered to the CDC. Not putting down the CDC, they've got a function. We do pay them for accurate information, but they have been flip-flopping on their statistics and feedback for us as a nation, which I think has caused a lot of confusion and contradictions. And so this, we were talking about this earlier, this gets more into cognitive dissonance, people having two different divergent roads of thinking, and they're conflicting, so they go into this, I don't even know how to make a decision about this anymore, so they just default into, well, I guess I'll just go ahead and go along with the ride and wear masks or whatever the requirement is. Anyway, I hope that helped. Sharon?
Well, I think that was really phenomenally good information that people really needed, and thank you for your research this week. So we might want to all give Will, yay!
Well, I think one of the main things here is, since this is a national, international, thanks to Tryson, is
I
to
gotta get
take
this
take this approach with your local retailers. That's your food, folks. You know, find out who's just capitulating with this situation, not even questioning it, and saying, well, you can't come in. Ask them if they can keep you out. They said to me, all of them said, no, we can't keep you out, but it's a strong suggestion. It's like, that's ridiculous.
And I have an equally strong desire to breathe the free air. I have an equally or stronger desire to not be dumbed down. I have an equally strong desire to be free and to honor my microbiome. I want to keep my well-being. Asking me to wear a mask when I'm healthy and out and about is to basically say, we don't want your health helping the whole microbiome we live in, actually, to be filled with the antibodies a healthy person is putting into the air. We don't want to be better. We don't want to be healthy. What we're really interested in is making everybody give up their constitutional rights, to give up their freedom, to give up who they are, and to be controlled. And if you pass this control experiment, we're going to go to the next step of a bigger control experiment. I don't even want to know what that one is. This one is ugly and bad enough as it is. The beautiful thing we can draw from this is the power to empower ourselves to get together. And people are saying, okay, there's crap on TV, there's nothing to watch, everything is crap. So let's start talking to each other, and let's start saying, let's start building new alternatives to the institutions. Okay? Start putting forward some good schools. Start putting forward stores and farms that are not going to kill all the soil. Let's support the local businesses, our local entrepreneurial businesses. We used to just call it a private or a business. Now we're going to call it entrepreneurial to differentiate that it's no longer corporate driven, corporate drive, because corporations have been proving to be more interested in a limited few at the top, called the board of directors. Now there's some amazing stuff to tell you about corporations, about the breakdown of the antitrust laws and everything that have allowed us to get to where we are. It turns out that the media, how many did you say media was there? 11 or 7?
For what?
The media outlet, the major media outlets were owned by 7, or was
7.
it? Okay, the media
Six.
outlets are owned by 6 of the same corporations. 6 of the same corporations are basically controlling what you get as news. Now, isn't it clear that obviously the news is not exactly unconflicted, that it is pure, that it is on point, that it is not serving an agenda to control you or to convince you to think a certain way, but giving you the facts so you can decide what you want to choose to consider as part of your decision-making process. That's being free. That's also being intelligent. Intelligence is the greatest gift our Creator gives us. Intelligence, I call that light. Love, informed light is beautiful. That's what we see from children, the children leading the way. We want to protect that. We want to make sure that we don't allow the strangulation of their light and their love to be put into boxes and to be dumbed down, to become bored with life, to become apathetic, to become pissed off with everything, and to feel that they have a right to control someone else. I've been seeing the masks are an outward big polarizing sign that people are starting to say, that's it, you crossed the line. It's going too far. You're now interfering with my health. I was giving you, as a free American who has a great love for the Constitution and is a greatly, deeply loving, imbued spiritual person, spirit imbued person who basically was willing to allow you to be free. If you wanted to hurt yourself, if you want to take drugs, if you want to shoot yourself in the foot, I don't like it. I don't like the fact that you are not breathing fresh air, that you're drugging yourself up. And if you're happy with not being well educated and sitting in front of the couch, being a couch potato, sitting in front of just TV and being bored out of your mind, you know what? I didn't like it. But I knew in a free country, if that's what you wanted to do with your life, you can do it. I like to say, God giveth the free will. I'm not going to go and take it away. I'm not that arrogant. But we right now are acting like we are looking for a way to end the COVID at all expense. All expense, including our freedom, including our prosperity, including losing our homes and being starving on the streets and standing in food lines. Really? Really? Think about this, people. Is this really where you want to go? A lot of people are saying, Sharon, that sounds like you are the most unloving person. You're not worried about my feelings or whatever. No, that's not correct. That's you trying to put a label on and trying to excuse from your fear, your very myopic fear position, okay, that you can only see just a little bit, staring down a microscope that the press is putting on to just look at end the virus at all costs. That's insane. We can't. It's impossible. It's completely arrogant. We do not have the power, the ability, nor will we ever have the ability to completely undo God's creation. I don't understand why religions have abdicated all of their followers by allowing them to not recognize they're being manipulated and controlled and told to give up their beautiful divine design. I thought they were teaching you about how to be closer to the Creator, not more distance from the Creator, not afraid of the Creator's way, but to trust science over God. Oh, if that's what religions have come to, really? Have they lost their way? Is this what you want? No, I think that's a pretty clear sign. All the corporate institutions are showing their breakdown, are showing that they are not serving you, that they haven't been serving you for some time, and now all they really want to do is suck up your life force and control you, and somehow, I don't know, they must have a hole in their soul so ungodly huge that they would even want to resort to taking away the beautiful liberties that make this country grand. So the masks are causing people to finally say it's so physical that and the information is so conflicting. And the minute you put it on, your body says, take it off. Listen to the wisdom of your body. You're not loving who you are. You're not listening to who you are. You're listening to one of the 7 owned media outlets that are telling you, be afraid. Oh, that's not true. We only want to focus on how many got it, not how many died. Oh my God, it's practically a flattened curve. Will people still get sick and die? Of course they will. When has that stopped? When has that not been true? Really? Okay? We cannot control that which we have never been able to control, that which we have no ability to control. All we can do is work in harmony with God's beautiful divine design. You say you are a spiritual being, you say that you love God, then act like it. Then act like it and start trusting what the Creator has always done. Do you think the Creator right now is saying, I think science is smarter than me? I think science has a better protocol, a better regulatory idea than the freedom and the way in which I have designed your free biome to work with this from the level of the intelligence of the Creator. Oh, that's magnificent. Oh, God, that is so beautiful. It just makes me get so tickled and excited. Brings out the little girl in me. Oh, the child shall lead the way. Why I love children so much is because they are so hungry to know who they are in a better and more beautiful way. Let us stop taking that away from them. Let us stop teaching them to fear their own body, to fear their own design. It's a divine design, folks. I don't care if you believe it. I don't care if you want to say I'm a nutball. It doesn't change that what I say is true, that it's grounded in eternal principle, and that it's beautiful. So we're going to have some nice links set up for you to go and follow through. Give us a day or two, because we will be pursuing that, and so will Trison, while I'm going to finish getting those books to you. And then we can have some great conversations and help you figure out what to do before the fall hits and they start trying to put your child into an indoctrination program. You do not want your child to be indoctrinated against you. That will happen. You do not want your child to become a robotic adult who will be more than happy to create a horrible world in which nobody gets to see anybody anymore, where the joy that we had just a few months ago has been wiped off of the face of the human experience, except those who are willing to go underground, like prohibition. You cannot prohibit the truth. You cannot prohibit people from, in this case, not wanting to get drunk, like the original prohibition. But in this case, the coin is flipped, and it's about prohibiting people from being true to their maker, true to their heart and soul, true to the freedom and the liberty that says we can be. In watching all of this, I would just like to kind of close, unless Trison has something to add or will, that, I've been hearing a lot, we've heard it, oh God, it's been going on. We've been being programmed in mindset, and you wondered how certain things, what validity they had and didn't have. We're so busy running our lives, you don't check everything out. But there's been such a strong drive to say, let's ban guns. Let's get guns out of the hands of people, because guns kill, guns kill, guns kill. They're evil, and anybody who wants a gun has just got to be the most horrible, horrific, violent person on the face of the earth. But I always wondered about that, just based on a couple just common sense ideas. Well, one, most of the people I knew who wanted guns legally were people who wanted to hunt, because that was their sport and they enjoyed it. And they provided food for the table that was not filled with all kinds of chemicals. And we got to have the enjoyment of Will's brother, who was I'm going to call him Mr. Earthman. He was about the most earthy person I ever knew. And he would, grind up venison and bring it to us. And it was the purest food. And it was just always so sweet and wonderful. And it would give him great joy to share. So, and we knew for a fact that wasn't chemicaled up. I mean, we knew for a fact, and it was just amazing. So there was that aspect of people who were using guns. And then there was people who said, I want guns to keep myself safe from the constitutional precepts and understandings that the only way to control a government that goes out of control is if you're armed, and they can't just come in and put you into concentration camps. Can't just come in and kill you because you have a way to make them back off, because you have your own way to protect yourself. So it was a neutralizing factor. Okay, and our founding fathers were brilliant, and I looked at a 200-year document giving us the most wonderful country and way to live. Of course, we've lost our way, largely due to the corporate stuff we're talking about here, and paradigms that have gone off the rails, which means, if nothing else, we need to look at this and say, they're breaking down, so now's a good time to rebuild and give us the paradigms we really want with all our heart and soul that are based on principle, because we can think about that now. And instead of just do it for me, we can't do it for me world. So the guns were about really protecting that and keeping our ability to have that space. I'm going to call it our sacred space, because the masks violate my sacred space. They violate the sacred space of anybody who says, I do not want to hamper my breath. I'm healthy. Now, if you're sick, just a little caveat. Of course, if you're sick and you want to wear one to protect others, then do so. I'm not saying don't, but I'm saying do not force a healthy person who says, I know I'm healthy and I do not want to wear a mask. And you have to have a mask, and mandate means control. Mandate means you're not free. And mandate is people control. What, to buy things? I need to, what? It gets crazy. It gets crazier and crazier if you just think about it, okay? And so the guns were for people to say, no. And that really was a great check and balance to people who wanted to, particularly government and criminals to say, you know what, I have to think twice if that person is armed and I'm a criminal, whether or not I want to deal with it. No, they're going to look for the person who's unarmed, weak, and Will, who's in Aikido and martial arts and amazing self-protection in the world, that's done with the Way of Harmony, Aikido. Basically, it's well known, criminals seek out and they watch who's afraid. And they are your prey. People who walk with their hands up, their head up, and a confidence, they think, you know what, I don't think I want to take that person on. I have no idea. They might beat the shit out of me. For all I know, they might shoot me down. That they definitely aren't saying, I'm afraid. I'm going to, I'll freeze in paralysis if you come after me. Go ahead, rob me, take me whatever you want. Okay? So it was about people who could protect themselves and neutralize evil forces. So that was always my thought before. You say, okay, it is what it is, right? And now I'm looking and saying, I'm seeing free Americans who are not taking their guns and going insane, like the projection was saying, that they would just start shooting everybody everywhere. I'm actually seeing the people who are wanting to protect their freedoms are being the most tolerant of people trying to abuse and take their freedoms from them. They are being very conservative about it, and they are being very reluctant to use violence. It's the opposite of what we've been told. And I'm watching that, and I find that intriguingly interesting and profound. Something I think about, because it's there in front of me empirically to see, watch, and observe, and say this is the very opposite of what I've been told. And yet we see the criminals going insane and crazy with whatever they've got. They want to go to their guns, go into a person's private property and threaten them, say, we want your house. What? No, you should be able to protect that. That's insane. Is this what you want? Is this what you want? I don't think you do. You're just not thinking out to step 2 + 2 equals. You forgot the equal sign. Add it up. Okay? This whole show and everything we do in here is to help you think beyond the media mask, beyond the blinders, beyond the see only this. Oh, don't see the whole picture. My God, if you see the whole picture, you realize we're doing something stupid right now. No. We don't need to be doing any of this. It's time to be free. There is no reason to shut our economy down, to wear a mask, and not be out there because the deaths don't warrant it. The amount of deaths don't warrant it. You can call me evil if you want. I'm a pragmatist. I know people are going to die. I'm a grown-up. I've accepted death as part of life. Duh. I mean, the day we were born, everybody knew we would have a death day. Trying to control that and trying to say how we're going to make that happen, if you don't think that's arrogant, why? Why not? What is it that you're not thinking of in a holistic viewpoint? I'm just asking you to think. I'm just asking you to bring your light and love forward, bring that beautiful presence, breathing your breath, to think things out. Sort the tares from the wheat. Pay attention to what you see. Stop being fearful, because you know what the opposite of love is? The true opposite of love is fear. Because fear is the absence of love. And the more love is taken out of the equation, the more fear we have. Let's put more light. Light means information and awareness that's correct and true. So bring more light in and shrink the fear and become that loving self. Oops, I can't do it right. But we all know what I'm trying to do. Tracy, would you like to say anything to our audience before we leave today?
Yeah, I would love
Okay, great. We'd love to hear from you. Well, thank you. Love you all. Thank you for listening for your own good, your own growth, your own love.
Hi everyone, Tryson Graham here to roll the outro. Thanks for being with us. Thank you to our hosts, Sharon Quinn, Will Gable, excellent teachers. And thank you all for being with us. Join us next week and check the channel. All of the mediums Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, and we'll be posting updates as the week goes on.
And right ass.
And write to,
Communicate with
yeah,
us.
interact. Thanks for the interaction, and we'll be checking back for more. Bye.